Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to Choices Not Chances, and I got a good guest for you today. I haven't known him long, and he has put some trust into me. David Mulldune is our guest tonight, and he served in Vietnam. Actually turned 19 there in 1968. He did 68 and 69. He started off with 327, transferred over to 27. He was uh, a weapons section leader for most of his time there, and we'll talk about it. Um, Really up close and personal with the enemy. He talks about everything from centipedes and constrictors to black syphilis and gonorrhea and the different STDs, prostitutes. He talks about an immense, dislike or disdain for people that were personnel other than grunts back on the base. He talks about drug use a little bit, not that him and his guys did in the bush, but that absolutely happened in Vietnam. And talks about maybe just a little bit of the loss of innocence. And he talks about 13 months of backbreaking work against the NVA before he came home, and then a bit about transition. And it's a really good one, a really good episode for guys that haven't been there, and also a good episode, I think, to peel back some scabs of guys that were in Vietnam. Um, we don't talk in depth about it, but towards the end of the episode, David talks about turning his life over to Christ, and that's a big deal. We'll get there, so long as you stay tuned long enough. But turning life over to Christ is a huge deal, and we talk about an international revival that's hitting the globe right now, and it's important for everybody. But it's important especially for Vietnam survivors, let's say, that had Agent Orange dropped on them and have the baggage and the outcomes and the sickness and illnesses that come with that. And so faith in God to get them through and see them on to the next world is something that we talk about. And I hope you enjoy the episode. David Mulldune, everybody. David, thanks for coming on, like I said, and I've looked forward to this chat.
Thank you. You're more than welcome.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you being willing to come on. I've only had a couple of guys from your generation of warfighters, one or two, come on the show before, and I'm always just kind of blown away at the things that I hear. As I think most warriors along the generations are, as the war changes, we think about it from our own perspective and our own experiences, and sometimes it makes it just seem completely unrelatable and unimaginable what different generations go through. Like, I thought what you guys did in Vietnam was almost unimaginable. Like, I can't even imagine. And then there's, our wars or my wars, and now I'm looking at these kids that are, in war in Ukraine and Russia, and even our kids getting ready to, go to war at a moment's notice. And like, for me, IEDs didn't fly when I was in, and that just seems crazy to me. So just the different changes and just little subtle changes in weaponry and such on the battlefield always changes it. So, but before we get there, if we can just start, I don't know if you've seen any of my shows, and if not, no worries. But I usually just try to start at the beginning and understand where people come from, and that just helps me understand leadership, understand traits from somebody's younger life, understand parenting a little bit, and get into it. But I like to start between the ages of like 5 and 12. Oh, excuse me. Between like 5 and 12, and I understand where things came from, how many siblings, who you come from, where you come from on the map, was religion in the household, those kinds, of foundation. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yes, my mom was a divorced mother at 19 years old with three children. I was the oldest. I have two younger sisters, a year apart each. This was in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We were considered pretty much poor white trash, and we lived in the very poorest section of Pine Bluff. And our mom couldn't really take care of us. She worked at a factory, and we were frequently left alone. And we used to steal from the Hostess bakery trucks where they would make their deliveries to stores. We'd wait till the guy would go in, we'd go in and help ourselves to Twinkies or whatever. But
Mm.
anyway, we roamed a lot on the streets. My mom knew she couldn't continue living that way, so she placed us in uh, two different orphanages. The first one for 2 years, I was 8 years old. My sisters were 7 and 6, and we lived there for 2 years. The lady, they couldn't get away with this nowadays, I don't think, but the lady, the house mother was a strong Christian woman, so she read the Bible to us every night. So that was my
Mm.
exposure to that. I didn't really understand a lot. Um, and then they were closing at the end of 2 years, that particular orphanage. So our mom, moved us to the Methodist Home for Children in Little Rock, Arkansas. During this time, she was going for an X-ray degree to be able to have a profession and better take care of us.
Mm.
So her intention was to get us out from the home. But we were in the Methodist Home for Children for 1 year, and it was there that I started developing somewhat of a rebellious streak. People who, I mean, both of the homes, they treated us well. Uh, we were taken care of, fed, sent to school. There were no horror stories in the home. Uh, so the thing that I did not like about being in an orphanage, and uh, and I know families meant well, but families would come and they would say, "I want to take one of the children out, let them come to our home. We'll take them to the zoo over the weekend, or keep them for a week. We'll take them on a vacation," that kind of thing.
Mm.
But what is difficult about that is that you're repeatedly doing this, going into strangers' homes, and you are so uh, uncomfortable. You are acutely aware that you do not belong to a family.
Mm.
And so after a while, it becomes difficult to go to these homes,
Mm.
people's homes. And one time I was requested to go to a home, and I said, "No, I don't want to go." And they said, "Well, you got to go." And the house mother, I just sat there and she went to grab me and I punched her. And I was put in juvenile hall at 10 years old, solitary confinement for 4 days
Mm.
for this. So that was my first start with rebellion. Our mom
Mm.
got us out. And at 11 years old, I joined a gang in Pine Bluff, and we got in a fight with another gang, and somebody got stabbed in the stomach. And I decided I didn't want to be a part of that particular gang anymore.
Mm.
But right around that time, my mom, being an X-ray tech, she met a man, a patient who was visiting Arkansas, visiting his parents. He lived in California. So she married him. And within 2 weeks, they got married. So that tells you
Oh,
how eager
wow.
my mom was to get out of that situation.
Mm.
She moved us to California, and I had the deep Southern drawl, and the girls all loved it, and I was okay with that part of it.
Yeah.
But guys, not so much. I was a hillbilly, hit from the sticks kind of thing. So fighting became part of my existence.
Mm. Mm.
And I tended to withdraw more and become more of a loner. So I
Right.
ended
Right.
up fighting a lot. Pardon me?
I just said right.
Okay. Yeah, part of it, I um, was just fighting anybody at the drop of a hat. If they would even look at me funny, I would be willing to get in their face. And at the beginning of my junior year in high school, I'd already been kicked out um, once before and uh, twice before. And I punched out a guy in English class. So that was not acceptable behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I was sent to the principal and I was expelled. And so I dropped out for good at the beginning of my junior year of high school
Okay.
and continued to get in trouble with the law, in and out of juvenile hall multiple times. And I was pretty much roaming the state of Northern California between close to San Francisco, Ukiah, uh, that kind of thing. And a judge, I was arrested one time, and a judge, my mom came to the courthouse and he told my mother that either she gets me out of the state of California for a year or I would be handed over to the California Youth Authority, which was a prison for juvenile offenders, for a year. So she said, okay, she'll get me out of California. And she took me to Arkansas, but within a month I was back in California. And I knew I had to do something. And I was going nowhere pretty fast. And Vietnam was going strong. I had just turned 18, and I thought about evading the draft because, to be truthful, seeing the news, I would see our troops in Vietnam, and it scared me. And they were talking about instituting the draft as well. But the more I started thinking about it, I thought, you know what, maybe the military is my way out. And I actually went and signed up for the Army first. But as I was walking out of the recruiting station, I saw a big sign that says, I signed up for the Army for 3 years. And I saw a big recruiting sign for the Marine Corps that said a 2-year program for the Marine Corps. And I went in with a buddy of mine, and he was just a few months younger than me, so he wasn't 18 yet. And the recruiter, I mean, he did a great sales pitch, but comparing the Marines with the Army, and because I told him I'd already signed up for the Army, and he says, well, if you sign with us, he says, I'll take care of that. I didn't know at the time that you can sign up for anything until you're sworn in.
Yep.
It doesn't mean anything. And so I thought I was locked into that, but I wasn't. And so I went ahead and signed up for the Marine Corps. And at first, I was nervous about it, but then I started getting, I'd been called losers so many times in my life and dropped out, from high school and all that kind of thing. And the military gave me something, discipline, which I desperately needed in my life that I didn't have. So having graduated from the Marine Corps, from boot camp, 10 weeks of boot camp, which I never thought I would have been able to accomplish, it was like the greatest feeling in the world. The day we graduated, and we weren't even considered human beings until we graduated. We were told we couldn't even claim the title of human until we graduated as a Marine. So I was at the top of the world. I actually thought I was the baddest ass walking the face of the earth. And yeah. And I knew my MOS, I was going to Vietnam. I was in 03, and 03 is infantry. You had your 31, 41, and 51s, machine gunners, mortarmen, and 0311 straight grunts, and 0351 the rocket guys. So I knew I got the 03 designation out of boot camp, and had approximately 4 more months of infantry training, specialty training, staging before leaving for Vietnam. And uh, the last film we saw was President Johnson giving a speech saying, why Vietnam? And I truly believed that I was going over there, a noble cause, fighting for the freedom for the oppressed South Vietnamese people. But upon arriving in Vietnam, I mean, there's a lot of details I'm leaving out. I don't know what all you want to hear, but
No, I mean, I think you kind of covered the beginning part of mainly just kind of where you started and where you fell in the birth order. So would you consider, just to cover down, would you consider your catalyst just the way out? That's what you wanted, was you had to get out of there? You had to blow out?
yes,
Yeah, yeah, okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
It
okay.
was a way out.
And
It was a way to lose the loser tag.
mhm, mhm. And when you went, were you desiring an O3 designator, or you just didn't care?
I wanted the O3
Okay.
because uh, my whole training was infantry.
Mhm.
And we had a couple of guys, one guy in particular, Humphrey, I remember his name. He was one of the top guys in our PT, and yet when he got his designation, he was being sent to cook school.
Hmm.
He literally broke down in tears
Hmm.
uh, the day we were given our assignments, our O3 assignments, and he was sent to cook school. And it was like, to me, Ryan, it was like I had been called loser so many times. It's like the ultimate test
Hmm.
to find out, did I have what it takes to do something that most people would never, ever dare to do?
Hmm.
Could I face a war or combat situation and come out of it standing up as a man instead of the loser that, I had drilled into my brain?
Hmm. Do you think do you think what do you think that does to the human psyche, to be bullied and to be downtrodden and to be called a loser and called trash? What do you think that does to the human psyche even now with, we got social media, so it's almost on repeat 24/7 for some of these kids? Is that just completely detrimental in your mind?
It is detrimental. I think two things that it can do. It can beat you down so much that you look at yourself that way and you treat yourself that way, and you never expect anyone to give you any degree of credence at all
Hmm.
to your life. Or it can do the opposite, and you rebel and you're going to say, F you,
Hmm.
I'm going to take whatever it is that I want in this life.
Yeah.
And I don't care about anybody or anything that gets in my way.
Yeah. Let me show you how great I am. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I know there's just, my kids are right in that school age right now, like that middle school age, and there's just, kids are mean to each other, and I see it happen, and I just don't think that people understand how bad that can be. Even just the words, even just hearing that. And I've had guys on my show that were, very much in the same, came from very strung out beginnings, and parents that weren't really paying attention to them, or in some cases parents that were the ones doing the bullying, calling their kids the losers and telling them they'll never be, great at anything. And I got to have that person as an adult, some of these people as an adult in my squad, and to look at the lack of confidence, even after boot camp, even after being a Marine, even after being in the Marine Corps for, multiple years, there's still that unsure, I don't want to lead them. I'll follow you. I'll be a gunner, but I don't want to lead anybody. And it's like, they fucked you up from the very beginning. They messed you up just because they were too stuck on themselves. And so I try to establish a lot of that on this show because I feel like anybody watching this show that might have kids, maybe that could be a wake-up call or just reinforcement to say, yeah, we got to make sure we get this part right. You can't do that part. You can't downtrodden these kids because it affects them years and years later. Okay, enough on that. So,
Absolutely.
no, go ahead.
One thing I just want to say about that is that the child that can be a very loving, compassionate, caring individual, they get their natural personal instincts within themselves. They get those things stomped on, then that dampens them and it changes how they respond to other individuals in their lives. And they no longer share the compassion that they have or the tenderness. And so to me, it's critical for young people to be built up within reason. They need to be able to deal with reality as well, but to be prepared for the onslaught from people for whatever reason they're angry, bitter, whatever in their own lives, that they're going to try to stomp on and bury somebody else that has those kinds of tender qualities.
Like victim becomes the Punisher kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it happens generally. Yeah, we got to break that mold as a people for sure. Okay, so we can move from there. I did want to ask, when you joined and then you graduate boot camp and you're on top of the world, you still, what's your relationship like with your family, with your sisters, with your mother? Is there a profound pride that swells from that? What is that like?
Yes. I mean, with my mom, definitely. My sisters, my oldest sister, Beverly, she always said, she thought I'd be dead by the time I was 16. So she was proud. She came to see me off when I left for Vietnam on Mother's Day, actually. And so both sisters, yes, it was, they were so used to seeing their brother in trouble with the law and being, juvenile hall constantly. And they just never thought I would amount to anything. So yeah, it was a huge change in the way that they looked at me.
And then, what's the biggest takeaway from boot camp or from that first day school SOI, whatever that specialized training was? What was the biggest takeaway from any of that training?
From training?
Yeah, from before you deploy. Is boot camp all you received before you left?
I'm sorry. I need to just explain one thing real quick.
Okay, please.
I was a combat Marine in weapons platoon, so I have permanent nerve damage to my hearing. So
Okay.
I wear hearing aids. I don't know if you can tell that. So I can't always pick up on the words that I'm being
no problem.
spoken.
No problem. My question was, did you have, between boot camp and then deploying to Vietnam, did you have any schooling in between that, weapons or anything like that?
Yes. Back then it was ITR, Infantry Training Regiment.
Okay.
They call it something else nowadays, where we learned to handle, at that time we were being trained with the M14s. The M16 hadn't come out yet for us. And but we got to fire the 3.5 rocket launchers, flamethrowers, the 81 millimeter mortars, 60 millimeter mortars, M60 machine gun. I mean, grenade tossing. To me, that was exhilarating to learn how to handle all that stuff. And the maneuvers I went through Marine Corps training at Camp Pendleton in California.
Okay.
So mostly were hills, mountains is what they call them, mountains. They weren't really mountains, just big hills.
Yeah.
All of our training was there, and so we would be dropped off in the middle of the night and with nothing, and we had to find our way back. We were put in a gas chamber, which was quite an experience, and you couldn't panic going through that thing. Um, and the thing is that going through training as a Marine, if somebody screwed up, everybody got punished.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, you were saying you're a team. So you had to make sure. So they would have us in the gas chamber, and we all lined up on the walls, closed the doors, and they told us that they were going to release the gas, and they wanted us to start singing the Marine Corps hymn as soon as the gas started being released. And then only when they decided to open the door, then we had to march out without panicking and march out in orderly fashion, all in a row. And if somebody bolted or panicked, then we had to do it again.
It sounds familiar.
So we got pissed off plenty because you always had somebody who would panic and bolt. But anyway, we went through a POW camp that was in staging. I had to go through a village and clear for snipers, and I missed a sniper. I don't know how in the world I did, so I was shot and killed. And I had to go through that one again. And my last one, we had already finished up. We were in our very last training, 3 Marines, and we had a scorekeeper behind us, and we're walking through a village, and they had the pop-ups. And we had to shoot the enemy pop-up, but don't shoot the kid that popped up, kind of thing. And we're going through, and I don't remember which one of us did, but an innocent pop-up came up, and we all opened fire basically on this innocent pop-up. And the scorer is yelling at us, and we keep going. We didn't even pay any attention. It didn't matter what popped up, a dog, whatever. We started shooting everything. And he said he was going to flunk us and everything, but we said, we're scheduled to fly out of here in 3 days. You're not flunking us.
Yeah, we already know what's happening.
Yeah, we went through pretty intensive training, and I thought, and I put this, it was my feeling. I thought I was on such a high at that point too. I thought that, okay, it's like you've gone through this training, 10 weeks of boot camp and 4.5 months or so of the infantry training, and you're ready. You're chomping at the bit, and to me, it's like, a heavyweight boxer. He's training for months for the championship bout. Okay, you've done it. Let's get this on and over with. That's the feeling I had. And the very day we were scheduled to leave for El Toro Marine Air Base, we were at Pendleton. Our group of Marines were sitting in the barracks, and somebody had a big gallon wine of Red Mountain wine. It was some cheap rock gut stuff, but we're passing it around, each one taking a sip, chug of it, and nobody's saying anything. We're sitting there because we know this is it. It's finally here. And it's like your anticipation is on the one hand, like, let's go, let's get this on. I want to get there and let's get this thing done. But on the other hand, you're thinking, is this it? Am I going to die in Vietnam? And this thought you juggled it back and forth. Some of the guys would write, we call them death letters. They were writing in the barracks there in case they were killed. They wanted their family to get those letters. And but to me, I thought, I don't want to write a letter like that, because to me it was like, okay, I'm acknowledging I'm going to be killed. And I didn't want to acknowledge that.
Like manifest destiny. Yeah, I get that. So Okay, so let's back again. Let me just for clarification. When you first, when you first are leaving, you're with 27th Marines.
I was first assigned to, yes, India I-327
Okay.
in Vietnam.
Okay. Well, walk me through what that's like as far as like going, checking into Vietnam. I know you just spoke a little bit about like the intensity, kind of like the build up. What's it like when you get the boots on deck, that first initial
Oh my God.
opening?
Well, we're getting ready to board the plane there in Da Nang, and two things that hit me. First was the tremendous, excuse me, my throat is dry,
No worries.
heat. It was so hot and humid. And a thought rang into my head of my DI when he was handing out the MOSs in boot camp. There was this one Marine that had been a pain in the ass the whole time in boot camp. Our DI, when he gave him his MOS of an 03, he told me, he said, and the guy's name is Wright. And it's funny how I can remember these guys' names, but he told Wright, he said, Wright, I want the moment that you step off that plane in Da Nang, that a sniper puts a bullet right between your eyes. And
Wake up call.
well, when that door opened and I felt that heat, that's the first thing I thought, is a sniper going to put a bullet right between my eyes? But I got off and I'm asking, it was so unorganized. And I'm saying, okay, where do we go? And they took us into one place, and some master sergeant or somebody, he was telling us, stay away from prostitutes. He said they had the black Sith. It was all warning stuff. Most of this stuff wasn't true. But he said they had the black syphilis, and this is what you'll get. And then they'll just put you on a hospital ship and you'll just die from the syphilis. And they'll tell your parents you were KIA in Vietnam. That was BS. And also stay away from snakes. And he said they had a black mamba that would get you. And only after I left Vietnam did I find out there are no black mambas in Vietnam. But that's what he told us anyway. And but that, he said 99% of the snakes are poisonous and the other 1% are constrictors. So stay away from them. And warned us against, visiting a place called Dog Patch, which was notorious for prostitutes. But you didn't even have to go to Dog Patch. The women in the villages, I was out in the bush my whole 13 months. They made extra money by being prostitutes. But it was unorganized. I asked, how do I get to my outfit? I'm being assigned to India Company 327. How did I get there? And the guy just basically says, you just hop on the next 6x heading in that direction until you get there. And my first thought, I did get on a 6x. It was heading there. And they picked up two grunts. And these guys smelled like shit. They wouldn't even look at you. They were just rough guys, experienced. And I thought, what have these guys seen? Is this going to be me in a few months? Will this be me in just a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
And but I got to I-327 and I was assigned to the 60 millimeter mortars and weapons platoon. And no one really seemed to give you a hand to tell you what you need to do or anything. But I'm so grateful to Corporal Joey Ramos, who was my squad leader. And the first duty he had me there to do was to load up. We had been hit the night before. It was near Ho Chi Minh's birthday. So we received rocket fire and mortar rounds and that kind of thing. We lost several Marines, and I call him Joey. Corporal Ramos had me. My first duty was to help load the bodies of dead Marines onto choppers. And he said, I want you to learn real fast that this isn't a fucking game. This is not a John Wayne movie. He says, so get that, out of your mind, out of your head. And I'm just numbed at this point. And I, I didn't realize even how heavy a dead body is to move. They're not easy to move, and I didn't even want to touch the bodies. There's blood all over them. Some of the bodies were shorn, shredded, and I thought, man, I have 13 months of this, and I don't know. And I'm trying to reconcile that with, I'm picturing civilians, saving civilians from communist aggression. I'm not looking at bloody bodies. So my first duty, well, I mean, I had another one, but that's relatively minor, but was a shock to my system.
Yeah. How, well, let's go a little bit deeper there. What was that shock? I understand that shocking to see or whatever. Did it change you?
Yes. Yes. I looked at these guys, and I remember, I mean, some of the guys that I helped loaded onto the choppers, I didn't know, but there were a couple of them that I had just seen the day before. And it's like I couldn't reconcile that I'd seen them and he's dead. And I'm beginning to think, okay, I need to sort these things out. And there was, I don't know, a couple days later, I can't recall the time frame, I went on a patrol with the squads. There was a Marine in front of me. We had to maintain a distance 10 to 12, 15 feet between each other because, he was ahead of me. We were coming to a village, and a bunch of kids came up to him and asked him for some, if he had any cigarettes or candy or anything.
Sure.
And he told them to get the, buck away from him. And so they scattered because he pointed his M16 at them. And they came to me, and I'm thinking, why are you being such a hard ass with these kids? And they came to me and asked me if I had cigarettes and candy. I said, yeah. And they asked if they could have some. So I gave them some of my cigarettes and some of the candy from the sea rations I had. And they were telling me, they said, oh, you number 1, he number 10, this kind of thing. And I'm feeling pretty good at that point. But he turned around and he looked at me, and he kind of gave me a look that, and I was intimidated by him too, because he had already been there like 8, 9 months. And he looked at me, he gave me a glare, and he said, you're going to fucking learn. And that was loading those bodies up, and that is such an odd feeling that I had inside, and him telling me that I will fucking learn, that scared me. I thought, what is he talking about? What is it that I'm going to learn? What it tying these kids, giving them candy and stuff, what am I going to learn? And it didn't take long to find that out. Yeah.
I was going to say, did you learn?
Yes, yeah. We went on a major operation just shortly after the Operation Allen Brook, and my company uh, got pinned down. We were encircled. Snipers were hitting us from everywhere. Saw guys being uh, killed. Guy died from heat stroke. Um, I'm thinking I don't know that I can even survive this. And um, I believe it was Lima or Kilo Company, one of those came in. They broke through to us. We withdrew. We lost Operation Allen Brook. We lost probably we went in company strength about 175 guys. We walked out with um, maybe 80 or 90 guys. Not all of the guys were killed. Some were wounded. Some had heat stroke. Some, but we lost uh, a great deal to being killed. We had quite a few KIs, but we did end up beating, it was an NVA. Well, I, I think there were close to 1,000 to 1,100 NVA soldiers that we did eventually drive out of there. And the thing that gets me on this, Ryan, is that they told us, well, later we found out we were given the Presidential Unit Citation for our action there in Operation Allen Brook. And we got several Vietnamese awards. And I'm thinking, I'm starting to feel, and it's coming to me now, to anger and almost like, I can't believe you think giving us a medal is worth our men's lives. They're just like me. They have dreams. They have families. Some were married. I was not married. Some had kids. I didn't have any kids. They never get to experience anything again. It's difficult to describe, to put into feelings how I feel when I think of my fellow Marines who were the losers with me, because at that time, the civilian population in the U.S. were turning against Vietnam, and we were the shell-shocked baby killers and all this kind of thing. And so I built up anger toward them, and I built up anger toward politicians who at that time were arguing. They were having peace talks, the Paris peace talks, over the shape of the table that they would be sitting at. And I thought, you just got to be effing kidding me that our guys were dying out here and you're arguing over an effing table. But you wouldn't send your son, you wouldn't send your friend's son to be in combat in Vietnam, but you'll send who you consider the loser son, and we'll make it better by saying, oh, you did it for honor, you did it for glory, we'll give you a medal. That makes everything okay. I have to call bullshit, Ryan. I mean, that's what it is.
I was just talking to a good buddy of mine who we were in the Marine Corps together. Just ran into each other by chance this morning. Wild. We got to talking, and we talked kind of about this very thing, about awards and why do we do awards and when did that start, and the best I can figure it, an award has it had to do something with psychological impact. Like you get an impact award, and that's what we call it, or a valor award, and that's what we call it. But if you read the award, the higher up that award is, the deeper in the shit and terrible times and people dying and their friends dying they were. So the more bad stuff that was happening to you, the higher the award. So it's almost like saying, we know you had to do terrible shit, and you did it so well. You did that terrible shit so well. And this is just a token of our gratitude for the terrible shit that you had to go through. And I know Dakota Meyer and different heavily decorated people have talked about it in the past. Is like, oh, you want to tell me about your impact award or your bronze star, your silver star story? And it's like, no, he doesn't want to tell you about that. That in fact was the worst day of his life. That maybe likely 20 years later he still relives over and over. That's what that is for him, And people don't recognize that. I don't think always. I don't even think we recognize that always when we're young coming through. Because when you're young and coming through, a lot of people chase that. Oh, yes. I want that. And it's like, calm down, devil dog. There's baggage that comes with all of that, all those things that you want so bad. Now it's like the flip side of the coin is you need that young devil dog to think that way. You need him to think that way when he's going over there and doing those things. And so it's just like, I guess that's the realization of a warrior that's in his elder days versus a warrior that's hitting right now and needing to think that way, right? So, yeah, that's wild. What was, I definitely changed when I seen the first Marine dead on the same battlefield that I was on. You're seeing multiple dead Marines. Was there ever in your mind did you ever go to that place like, am I leaving here? And did you ever get to the place where you had come to grips with the fact that you weren't leaving there? Did that ever happen in your head?
Yeah. It's funny. Initially, Allen Brook was just an absolute shock to my system, and it changed the way I looked at a lot of things. I was fearful a lot on patrols before Allen Brook. The patrols I would go on, I was always I was nervous. I'd get flooded with adrenaline. I mean, I have had adrenaline rushes so many times in Vietnam. I thought I was literally drowning in adrenaline. But I say after Allen Brook, I remember one night we were in an area. We named different areas. Sure. We had an area called Dodge City, and it was a particularly rough area. It didn't matter. Whenever you pulled a patrol and you knew you were going into Dodge City, you were going to hit some shit there.
Yeah.
And I remember we were there, and we set up a squad ambush for the night. And I'm thinking, yeah, we're in Dodge City, okay, what's going to happen here? And then, like, all of a sudden, it's like a calmness kind of came over me. And it was, you know what? Fuck it. If I die, if I'm killed in my sleep, if I wake up in the morning, somebody shoots me, a sniper gets me, fuck it. I don't care anymore. And it's like,
what did that do to you on the battlefield? What did that realization or acceptance do for you in a firefight?
My attitude just changed completely. My attitude became situational ethics. Forget any Geneva Convention BS, because that wasn't going to fly. You no longer, my number one goal at that point was to stay alive. And there is one that's attached to it, and that's to, keep my fellow Marines in. You've been in the military, you know how it is. You may have a company of Marines, but you only had a select few that you actually dealt with on a daily basis.
Sure.
Rarely did we had 3 platoons and a weapons platoon, 3 rifle platoons. So we stayed with weapons platoon. So your concern would be, number one, to stay alive and to keep your buddies alive. And your number 2 goal is to kill the enemy as many as you can. And number 3 is based upon number 1. So it got to the point where I did not have a problem torturing prisoners. If we knew somebody knew something, we had a village that they had, there was a booby trap at the entrance to their village. They didn't tell us. They knew that booby trap was there because it was an entrance to their village. But they didn't tell us. They didn't warn us. And we lost, I don't remember, we lost 1 or 2 Marines from the explosion. I wanted to wipe out the whole village. In fact, we were going to wipe out the village. But our lieutenant wouldn't allow us to do that, but he did call in tanks, and we destroyed all their crops. But I didn't think that was an even change. And it's like the payback wasn't equal. And it was here. I was coming over here to fight for your freedom, and you don't care if I die or not fighting for your freedom. So just see how much I'm going to care for you now. And it's horrible to say. You become cold, and your emotions you start to bury because you see your fellow Marines. Ryan, there wasn't a week that didn't go by that we didn't lose somebody, either through a booby trap or a sniper or firefights. We lost somebody to something. And you get cold. And I remember too, and this probably one that helped drive the cold stake in me as well. We had Sergeant Perez. We had very few Hispanics. He was Mexican. And we called all non-combat personnel pogues. So I don't know if you've ever heard that term before.
Yeah, we still call them pogues. Followed your footsteps. Yeah.
And, he was a pogue. He came from an administrative clerk position. He wanted to experience life in the bush, and we're saying, how crazy are you? And he was going on a money run to Da Nang to get, we didn't have American dollars, we had military payment currency, MPCs. And he went to get the money so that they could pay us on payday. And I thought about going along with him. He went with the lieutenant. And just so I could visit Dog Patch. And but I didn't. And he and the lieutenant were killed in a roadside bomb. And I thought, he's making a trip just to get money, and he's dead. And for the first time, and this is where, again, it speaks about the coldness you develop. This is the first time when the thought came in my head was, I'm glad I didn't go. I'm glad it was him instead of me going.
Mm-hmm.
I had never thought like that before.
Mm-hmm.
But then when some of my buddies would be killed, and I remember hearing of one uh, Haas he became Sergeant Triplet. We called him Haas because he looked like Haas from Bonanza. Um, he was showing a bunch of boots how to set up a Claymore mine, and I don't know what in the world he was thinking, but he had the plunger still connected to the Claymore, and he was going out placing, showing how to place the Claymore, and a boot picked up the plunger and
Oh
squeezed
my God.
and killed Sergeant Triplet. And Sergeant Triplet, I loved that guy. He pinned my corporal stripes on me. He was a tank. And but I remember hearing word that he died, that he was killed that way. And my first thought was, what were you thinking in having the plunger connected to the Claymore?
Mm-hmm.
But the other one was, again, I'm glad it was him and it wasn't me. And then I'm beginning to question myself, how am I thinking like this? Why am I thinking like this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you just start, it's survival. That's all you're thinking about is survival at that point. Emotionally cold. And to this day, Ryan, I'm telling you, I know how I'm supposed to feel on different things. I have 3 daughters. I have a wife. I love them. I know how I'm supposed to feel, but I don't.
Mm.
But I act upon how I'm supposed to feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Too much. Yeah.
And I know it's because I've never been able to lift that out of myself.
Yeah. What do you think that comes from? Just turning your emotions or your sympathetic nervous system, knowing that for a period of time in your life that was different? Because I don't understand that either. You know, I'm not as far removed from it as you, but I have issues with emotions too. I don't get it. Issues I didn't have prior to combat. So and so I think there's definitely a causal link to messed up emotional control or emotion regulation and kinetic fighting.
Yes.
I just don't understand why or how.
I wish would understand that too. Ryan, there was a time that I had snuck into Da Nang. I was a corporal. Visiting Dog Patch was office hours offense, and you would be busted in rank if you got caught in Dog Patch. But we did it. We all went there. We took the risk. I went to Dog Patch to visit a prostitute. And when all of a sudden there was a commotion, I had finished up. I just grabbed my M16 when there's a commotion, and the girl tells me that Army MPs were pulling a sweep through Dog Patch, and I'm going, oh crap, I can't get caught here because I'll get busted. I was sectional leader in weapons platoon at that time, corporal, and so certain privileges come with that. And I was determined I'm not going to get busted. I said, what do I do? And she said there was a panel inside her little hooch. And she said she lifted it up and I hid inside there and there's like little pinholes. And it's amazing what you can see through a pinhole. And I saw I'm back there, but there's a little tunnel there. And I'm kind of sitting there and I'm nervous about that tunnel because I'm thinking, who's at the other end of this tunnel?
Yeah.
So I put a round in my M16 and I'm pointing it down the tunnel while I'm peeking out the little peephole. And the MP comes in, looks around, and he leaves. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm not waiting in here anymore because this tunnel's making me nervous.
Yeah.
So I opened it up. Crawled out, went out the little door of her hooch, and I start walking away when I heard, "Hey, you Marines, stop."
Uh-huh.
And I turned around and he's looking at me. And I thought, okay, there's no way I'm letting this MP do this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part that really, to this day, still boggles my mind. I put a round in my M16 and I flipped it to full automatic and I pointed it right at his chest. He was maybe 10 feet from me. And he said, he obviously, he got nervous. I knew he was nervous. And I also knew that Pogues, and I knew that he was a Pogue, even though he's an MP,
Mm-hmm.
they were afraid of Marines from the bush
Mm-hmm.
because we had a reputation of being crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And we would push that reputation
Mm-hmm.
because we wanted them to think we were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that might have been a little bit of it.
But I pointed it at his chest and he says, "Marine, where are you going?" And he had gone to put his hand on his 45, but when I pointed at his chest, he dropped his hands completely.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I'm going back to my outfit. I'm going back now."
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he just said, "Oh, okay." And his voice started shaking. He says, "Just be sure that's where you're going." I felt such a high, I can't even tell you, Ryan. I felt an exhilaration at this guy backing down from me, and I won that particular standoff. But I asked myself many times since then, would I have pulled the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
And I flipped it to full automatic. And I am convinced, Ryan, that I would have pulled that trigger.
Okay, so regarding that, when you say you're convinced that you'd pull the trigger, is that because you were in such a mode of survival at that time that you didn't care who it was? It could be a friendly guy, and if he's going to pose a threat to you, you're going to put him down.
Yes.
Yeah, and so do you think that just this is a complex question, completely loaded, but do you think that comes from an extended period of time in a kinetic fight, or do you think that comes regardless of how much time you spend? If it's kinetic enough, you're going to get the awareness or the fuck it, survive only instinct.
That's a good question. In my experience, I can't speak for everybody's. In my experience, I think it probably came at a quicker pace because of Allen Brook, Operation Allen Brook being so early on after being in Vietnam. And when you have the physical tiredness too, and it's the humping your ass off with between anywhere from 35 to 50 pounds of gear on your back with rounds and everything, and sweat, mosquitoes, flies, lack of sleep, the constant surges of adrenaline. And yeah, I mean, we physically fought among ourselves, and nobody else better mess with us. But yeah, we got in fights with each other frequently too. I think, well, in my case, I think it came relatively quick. Others may take them a while, but I think if you're in a hostile combat is hostile, but situation, that maybe if your tour was 3 months, I don't know, but I don't know anybody who has a 3-month tour. The two most dangerous things in a combat situation to me, and we consider in Vietnam, were boots who just got in Vietnam because they don't know any better, and salts. We called guys who were experienced, we called them salts. They were salty. The boots didn't know any better. The salty ones thought they knew it all already. So they were dangerous. You didn't want to be around those guys. But well, with me, it was pretty quick. I think it was a quick learning curve where I had to just drown out emotions.
It was the same way with me, and look, I'm not trying to compare it all, and that's why I asked the question, is because it was very, very, very quick for me. You know, we had a helo-born invasion, and it's not like hundreds of guys were dying. It's not like guys were dying every day for me, every week for me even. But in the beginning, it was kind of like that. If it wasn't in front of you, you heard somebody over the radio that went down, and maybe they didn't die, maybe it was just a casualty, but it affects you on some level when you're in there by yourself and you hear numbers going down, and these are guys on your side. And then when it changed me was the very first on the same battlefield casualty in my element. That changed me in a big way, and it was like, that was different for me, and it was almost humbling different for me. And then it was so much more kinetic than I had pictured it or I'd imagined that it would be, that I got to a place of fuck it as well. I would pray, you know, I made sure I was right with what I found righteous, and outside of that, I just prayed that it would be quick when I went so that it wouldn't slow the momentum of my squad. Like, that's the way I thought about it. And when I started thinking that way, it made me so much more dangerous, because it wasn't a bunch of second guessing. It was like, that's what needs done, and it's not going away by itself. Here we go. And looking at it that way enabled me to remove emotion and just push. And when I was able to just to push, I didn't think about all of too many minds, right? I got the minds out of it. And then it became easier for me to operate, let's say. And that just became, that came very quickly in my last deployment. So,
I mean, I really appreciate you saying that, because so many, I understand what you're talking about. And so many people, when they want to ask me those questions, I don't want to tell them these things, because they sit there and think that I am just, nuts. And I express a lot of those things in my book, and I've had, a bunch of reviews where people just basically, they want to tear me apart because they don't understand that. So I really appreciate you telling me that.
Oh, yes, your speaking has drawn it out of me. I have not in Vietnam. I've not been to Vietnam. Nothing as intense as that, but I have been in some intense combat, and I have realized that my emotions, my chemistry, my eyes, everything changed after a very short period of time. And I don't know how. I think that sometimes in studies that doctors do away from the battlefield, I think they have an idea of how long you can leave somebody in kinetic fighting before you must remove them, or they have battlefield fatigue. That's maybe how they would say it. And my contention is that's wrong. My contention is that if it's one really, really savage firefight and you watch your friends die and you were making decisions about where they moved, that's enough right there. You're going to have some fatigue. You're going to have some feelings, some baggage. Now, does that mean you're out of the fight? No, I don't think so. I think you got guys that can learn from that and then continue to excel and lead other people and the like. But at some point when they slow down, a lot of thinking happens there. And so, anyway, I'm glad we kind of put that down. Let's if you don't mind, I still want to talk about some of the things in Vietnam. I know you had mentioned, it sounds like incidental or accidental friendly fire with that Claymore. You had mentioned inter-squad or inter service, at least squabbling, did any of that ever get dangerous because of guys being all the way on the edge?
Yes, we had a couple. Black power was starting to become an issue at that time, and we had a black Marine that he had shot a white Marine on the base. They got in a fight, got in an argument, and he shot him. Didn't kill the Marine, but he took off running, and we were on Hill 10, and the order was for us to find him and to bring him to our captain, Captain Van Riper, and everybody, fragging was real over there, and guys started putting in money to frag him as soon as, well, they weren't going to actually throw a grenade on him. They were just going to kill the guy. We were going to kill him if we found him. But one of our sister companies found him and brought him in. And our captain said that he would not file charges against him, and we were furious about that. And saying, you know, we didn't care whether he's black or white, or we didn't care what his color was. He was a Marine and he shot another Marine. You don't do that crap. And it's kind of, I guess, hypocritical of me because I was willing to shoot that MP, even though he wasn't a Marine. But I looked at Pogues differently than I did. That's terrible, terrible.
It is terrible. It doesn't mean it's not a real emotion. It's a joke.
But, we were getting ready to go on Operation Oklahoma Hills, and our captain told this Marine, his name was Williams. I changed his name in the book, by the way, but his name was Williams. And he had his hands tied up, and he was led by a rope. When we left our hill to go on the operation, he was being pulled by a rope. And probably the second day of being up in the hills on Charlie Ridge, did they let untie him. And people, we had pitched in money that in the first firefight, we said, whoever kills him gets the money. And but we were up in the hills and we were being resupplied with chow, sea rations. And this guy, Williams, wanted to be the first one there so he could grab the first sea rations, get his choice, I guess. And he went sliding down the side of the hill as this chopper's coming in to drop a load, because we had to be ready because it'd start rolling down as soon as you dropped it. So we were there. But he got too close and he got decapitated.
Oh my God. By the chopper?
Yeah, by the chopper. He got that close to the chopper as the chopper was coming down to drop the load. And so we all celebrated that he got it. So yeah, there were guys getting fights. Buddy of mine, Gary Price, we still stay in touch. He's outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Covington, Georgia. He would always want to fight the Pogues. We had an army unit came in on our hill to do patrols around our hill while we were on an operation. When we came in, we got in fights with the army guys. I think that's just a thing you do.
I'm pretty sure that's normal. Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said I'm pretty sure that's normal. I think that still goes on. So.
Yeah. So those kinds of fights. Sometimes it's just aggression. I don't know why. I was watching. 3 or 4 of the guys were playing poker. We were out on a patrol and we had set up. And so anytime you have a few moments, you pull out the cards and you start playing poker.
Yeah.
And So I saw the guy, he's sitting on his helmet, and I saw that he was cheating. And I'm getting pissed off watching him. And all of a sudden, I say, "You're an mother effing cheater." And I hauled off and hit him as hard as I could. Knocked him off his helmet, but he gets up. I didn't think he was going to get up. He came at me, and we went at it. And then some guys came to break us up, but our gunny said, "No, leave him alone." So they all just formed a circle
Let them
around
figure it out.
while we beat the crap out of each other. And it's a tension buster is
Oh
really
yeah.
what it was. Because I thought about that, and I thought, I cheated at cards all the time. Why did I get pissed off that he was cheating?
Yeah, it got you on the wrong day, maybe.
Yeah,
That's
crazy
funny.
stuff.
That's funny. Oh man. Okay, so there was a couple of things that we'd spoken about before, and I just wanted to cover some of them because the review from the Vietnam Association on your book was, I mean, just absolutely impeccable, blew me away, and I wanted to just touch on a couple of those things. But um, if you don't mind me, I just want to kind of read a little bit about your book on the review that was done by the association. I want to cover some of that, and then I have some questions pertaining to some of the things listed there. But it says David arrived in Vietnam in 1968. A Marina had just missed the Tet Offensive. He was a high school dropout who had trouble with the law. He has written the Mailman went UA, a Vietnam memoir, a powerful personal story of what scholars call the worst year of the Vietnam War. Nixon's strategy of Vietnamization was mostly viewed as contempt by those who thought that after the 1968 Tet Offensive, the United States was winning the war. Mulldune turned 19 in Vietnam during his May 1968 to June 1969 tour of duty, dealing with a steady round of patrols, ambushes, and sniper attacks. This was written in his foreword. The Down to Dirty memoir rates up there as one of the top, with Ernest Spencer's Welcome to Vietnam, Macho Man, Karl Marlantes' novel Matterhorn, for bold honesty and hard-hitting language, and descriptions of the unspeakable things that happened during war. And we've talked about some of those things today. Some of the things listed later on in that review, some things we've already talked about, one of them being Pogues. And listen, I have disdain towards personnel other than grunts as well during my time, mainly in the beginning part of my career. And then, as I started to be seasoned and go on more and more deployments, I started seeing how they supported me. And in a lot of ways, there were some support apparatuses or some Pogues that supported me in ways I had no clue that they supported me. And then other services like inter-service squabbling, I hate the Army kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, you might find yourself in a firefight and there's some Army ODAs that are going to come bail you out of something or come and help you. And so even though we will always have the inter-service squabbling and the multi-service squabbling, I think that's good. And it keeps everybody kind of on the edge of their seat and kind of prideful and taking onus of their being an ambassador of their service. I think those things are good. But at the end of the day, we all on the same team. We've talked about the snakes and the centipedes. That's one thing I wanted to get into because, like in Karl Marlantes' book Matterhorn, he talked about tigers, he talked about snakes, he talked about some different animals, whether perceived or storytelling or not. I wanted to see what your experience was with the snakes, with the wildlife. Did you have casualties that you knew were in your unit from that? Was that an issue?
Yes, I mean, we did. I mean, they had the pit vipers or bamboo vipers. We called them Joe Two Steps, which was, by the time you take your second step, you're going to drop dead, basically.
Mm.
Um, I I was leading one of my squads. I was section leader of 60 millimeter mortars. I was leading a squad out to our tower from Hill 10, which was about a click away. And we had to cross a bunch of rice paddy dikes. And so we're walking along, and all of a sudden I jump back because the snake, he was about probably easily 8, 9 feet long, and he was a big black snake. And he went underneath before I took my step. I jumped back, and he slithers on. And since I was section leader, I carried a 45, and I stopped the squad, and I pulled out my 45, and I shot the snake through the head. Well, the snake's he's thrashing all over the place, and then all my guys line up on the paddy dikes with their M16s, and they
Oh,
unload their M16s on this snake as it's being cut to
oh my
ribbons.
goodness.
And we got a call from the hill asking if we had made contact.
Yep.
We said, yeah, we thought we saw some VC running through the bush and everything, so we just uh, did some suppressive fire through the bush.
Yeah,
It was just to kill a snake.
just to kill a snake.
Um, but I had one time, you learn how to take your little 10-minute naps whenever you're on patrols.
Oh yeah.
You stop and you lean back, set your pack up behind your head and kind of lean back. I felt something, my ear was tickling, and I went to scratch it and felt it tickle again. And I reached back, and it was a centipede, easily
Oh boy.
12 to 14 inches long and easily an inch to an inch half wide. It was huge. And I grabbed my e-tool and got the little shovel part out and chopped that thing up probably on a dozen different pieces, but I had chill bumps all through my body.
Oh, I bet. Now, can those hurt you? Like, do they bite and hurt you? I don't know.
No, he didn't bite me or anything. I was fortunate that way.
No, I mean, but they can bite, or they do bite, and they got some kind of venom, or what?
Yeah, they do have venom.
Okay.
It's not venom enough to kill you, but it's venom enough to put you out of commission for a little bit.
Yeah, I got you.
Um,
Okay.
but the snakes, yeah, we just killed every snake we saw. We had stopped again, resting, and I'd closed my eyes for a moment, and I opened my eyes, and a Marine in front of me, he had fallen asleep, and there was a pit viper sitting. He had just crawled right up on his leg,
Mm.
and I pulled out my 45. I didn't want to shoot because I'm thinking it's on his leg, and I'd have to make sure I had a clean shot. And I was worried about him waking up and seeing this
Like
viper
jumping or something.
and jumping, and then the snake biting him. So I was sweating at what to do, and the snake just went on his way, and the guy never woke up.
Oh
So,
my God. And how many times do you think that happened where people didn't know about it?
oh yeah, I'm sure all the time. I mean, because listen, we we were supposed to dig fighting holes all the time whenever we stopped on patrol and stuff.
Mm.
But you're already exhausted. You just dug deep enough that you could kind of lay down where you're even with the ground.
Mm.
So I can only imagine the bugs, the centipedes, whatever, crawling all over us.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah. We did one time. It was had gone on a patrol, and it started pouring down rain, and which happened all the time. And we saw an old abandoned bunker, and there was maybe 6 or 7 of us, and we went inside the bunker, and we said, we're gonna sandbag the patrol. We're not gonna go. We'll just spend the night here. We'll leave in the morning and head back to the hill.
Mm.
And we woke up that morning, and we were coming out, and when we noticed in the corner of that bunker was a little ball of pit vipers, and none of us during the night happened to hit that little ball. It didn't disturb them or anything.
Hmm.
We were really fortunate.
Yeah, that's wild. It's wild how many things we don't know that that potentially are around us all the time. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, that covers snakes, centipedes, clap, and sith. And it covers fighting too. Kind of fighting is fighting was continuous there.
You know what's interesting about that is I was asked the other day on a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast, on a combat leadership podcast, by Mike Etour. If you guys are checking that out, check that out. LinkedIn. Good show, but he asked me about what was successful ways to breed aggression in young warriors, and that was my answer. Like, as a Victor unit squad leader, I made my guys fight almost always. Like, if we didn't have anything going on right after platoon formation, I'm right facing my platoon and marching them into the platoon to the right of me just until they fight, and we're going to go. You know, if we're in country and things were slow, grapple. You know, so I always made guys fight, and fought myself to just keep that aggression. And it seems like that's a lot the way, just in the Victor units, the guys I talk to, there's just a lot of fighting to keep that edge, keep that aggression, keep that mindset, I think. So I got a few more questions, and then after that we'll kind of move forward. But I want to talk about first Geneva Convention. I want to talk about ROEs. We spoke about it a little bit. You said it became kind of like survival ethics at some point. Was that general? Was that the general point of view over there for grunts on the ground? Or did you have sometimes the stoic leaders that said, "Yep, we can't go too far," or pull you back, or was it just generally, "Hey, we're surviving this no matter what we have to do"?
No, we were definitely surviving no matter what we had to do.
Yeah.
We didn't. Our guys were all that mattered to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever it took to make sure. If we thought an officer, or we even had a staff sergeant, if we thought they were a danger to our survival, money was collected. We had Charles Robb, who was President Johnson's son-in-law, was a captain, Marine captain. And our company, my company was joining his. I think his was India Company. I don't remember which company was his, but anyway, we were joining his company to do a joint operation with them. And we had marched all night. We were exhausted, tired to get to his hill. And it was late, and our captain requested that their chow hall be opened up so that we could have a meal before we went out on the operation the following day. And Captain Robb said no. And so what, and it had been raining too, so we're all soaking wet. And we said, okay, well, nothing we can do. And they said, just grab a place to sleep, whatever. And I saw a little engineer's hooch there on the hill, and I went in and asked them if I could crash in their tent for the night. And they said, yeah, you can. And one of the guys my size, he had jungle fatigues and dry. He said, here, you can take these jungle fatigues. They're clean, and get rid of your wet ones. I'll just take those. So, I mean, these guys were okay. And when I say Pogues, we were all jealous of Pogues.
Yeah.
So we hated them, but we were jealous of them.
That's
But
right.
anyway, envious of these guys. But anyway, I told them what Rob had done, denying us, being able to get chows. So they had some rations, some sea rations, and they let me have them. And they said, yeah, Rob was a prick. And he said that he knew he was the president's son-in-law, and he took advantage of that. And I go, okay. And anyway, we were pulling the joint operation with his company when we got caught in an ambush, and we were receiving heavy fire from some NBA soldiers, And our captains and lieutenants were all maneuvering into position. Rob was nowhere in sight. And so we're trying to coordinate with them to encircle the enemy force when a helicopter, a chopper's coming in. And we're going, what the F, you know? Choppers aren't going to come into a hostile situation like that. But he's coming in and he lands, and Rob jumps off the chopper. And a battalion photographer jumps off the chopper with him. And Rob stands there like he's pointing, and the photographer's taking pictures of Rob. He gets back on the chopper and leaves. Well, we get done with this, and his men said they were going to take up a collection to frag him in the next firefight. I threw in money on it just because I was pissed off for his men. And come to find out, Rob got a Bronze Star or something else. And officers, you're probably aware of this, in Vietnam, they only had to serve 6 months. Most of them served 4 months. They didn't have to serve 13. Our captain, Captain Van Rapper, volunteered his whole 13 months in Vietnam in the bush with us. And we loved that guy. And Rob had himself pulled out before his 4 months was up. So he was there just for political points. And he became senator or governor of Virginia at one point in time. But anyway, yes, things like that happen. We did have a gunny, Staff Sergeant Pulaski, and by this time I was pretty hard and cold. And he was a pogue, wanted to experience, he had been a cook or something, wanted to experience some time in the bush. And he was always getting our guys in difficult situations because he didn't understand how to position your different gun squads and all this stuff.
Sure.
And he was one of the guys that said, I outrank you, you do what I say, kind of thing. And so our guys wanted to frag him. And I was corporal, I was on the Hill 10 that night, and it was my duty for perimeter. I checked the perimeter every 2 hours. And I had Gary Price from Covington, Georgia. He came to me and he said, we want to frag Pulaski. And I said, what do you mean you want to frag Pulaski? We're on the Hill. And he said, well, he's there in the sergeant's quarters, and I'm just going to walk by. Don't say anything. You just, if anybody asks you haven't seen anything, I'm going to toss in a grenade. And I said, no, there's no effing way I'm going to allow that, because I don't know that he's the only one in that hooch, for one thing. And a grenade, the shrapnel's going all over. Somebody else could be nearby and be hurt. And I said, but I'll tell you what, on the next operation we go on, that we pull a sweep with him, then we can frag Pulaski. And we went out, and we had a boot named Crab. He looked like he was, 15 years old. I couldn't believe he was 18, but he came to us in order to climb up a dike, and you're probably familiar with this as well. You got the gear on your back in order to get up. The guy that's already up, he turns his M16 around. You grab a hold of the end of the M16, and you help pull the guy up. Obviously, your hand's not on the trigger. You're not in the trigger guard. Your weapon safety. And but anyway, Crab said he had made it up one part of this dike, and Pulaski was coming up behind him, and he went to grab Crab's M16, the barrel of his M16, and Crab flipped it to full automatic. And he said Pulaski's eyes got, big around like that. And he said, "Oh, sorry, Sergeant." He put it back on safety. And from that moment on, we never had another problem with Pulaski.
Now,
We learned
so let
he
me
got the message.
ask you this, because I've never talked to anybody about fragging or about the frequency with which that would happen. Is that something that happened across the force in Vietnam?
Uh, from personal experience, I don't know. I know that it did happen within my sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear from other Marines, from Marines from other units, that somebody got fragged. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I did hear, I've heard multiple stories of men being fragged.
Yeah.
We had guys who would actually shoot themselves as well
Yeah.
to get purple, to get taken out of the bush. We had two guys that you could pay the money and they would shoot you with either a 45 or the M16. I was terrified to be shot with by either one because a 45 will
Trash. Yeah, it's bad.
do you in pretty quickly, and the M16, no thanks.
Yeah.
I saw one guy, he was a boot. It was my last Operation Oklahoma Hills. I was coming out of the tree line, coming down for the chopper, and he had taken his M16. I saw him and thinking, "Oh my God, I know what he's going to do." And he took his M16 and put it on his leg and pulled the trigger. Well, they obviously had to chopper him out, but he shot it. It went through his femur, so they had to amputate his leg. The hip down. So yeah,
Bad call
being
there.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. Sad that people resort to that. All right, I got three more. We're gonna start with. It just said it in the pre-talk, so I don't know where we're going here. It just said Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, yeah. When I had gotten over there, Bobby Kennedy had been assassinated, and at that time, I thought I would vote for Bobby Kennedy, but we weren't allowed to vote.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be 21 to vote, so we couldn't vote at all. But I just thought, wow, what a shame what's going on in our country. And Martin Luther King had been assassinated when I was home on leave from training. And I'm thinking, things are just getting crazy. The politics were changing a lot. And that's where, again, the issues of being shell-shocked baby killers kind of thing.
Gotcha. That clears that up. And second to last, drug use. Was drug use in country something that affected everybody, most people, or some people?
Some. And
Okay.
it was BS. There was nobody I knew, and I was in a grunt platoon. No one I knew, even other Marines I came across that were in the bush, did any drugs. You couldn't afford to be doing drugs.
Yeah, that's what
You had to be alert for booby traps. You had to be alert for ambushes. So much, there was no way. The guys that I knew, I did know guys that were doing it. Those were the office personnel for our company. I knew they did weed all the time. Some of the corpsmen did weed. But they would do weed in their little, because it's like our officers didn't mess with the corpsmen. So even though they were with our company, they had their own little hooch. No officer ever bothered the corpsmen. The officer would come in on us all the time, so you had to be squared away. And but the corpsmen would do weed. I saw, but I never ever saw anybody ever do weed in the bush. None. And I've heard other Marines. I met one not too long ago that said that they did weed all the time in the bush. And I just have to call bullshit because I think you never were in the bush.
Yeah, I mean, weed specifically has pretty pungent smell, and that's going to carry, and anybody that's trying to hunt you is going to know that you're there when they smell that, is my guess. I mean, it's pretty loud, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that seems weird. And what about heroin?
I never knew anybody who
Okay,
did anything like that.
okay, cool. All right,
I
well,
heard about guys again that had access to Da Nang, maybe even Saigon. Saigon, we never were near because that's Army. That was Army territory. We were the I-Corps area of Vietnam, which is the northernmost part, and so the heaviest fighting went on there. No, I never knew anybody who did anything other than weed, and weed only the Pogues did that.
check. Okay, good enough. My last, I guess my last question before we transition out is, well, there's two really. The first is reintegration into society, and the second is Agent Orange, and maybe they can be spoken about together, maybe not. We can collectively hit them. But I know that America's feelings about Vietnam started to sway heavily, and that had have some kind of effect on the psyche coming home after you feel like you're there, going through that, sacrificing yourself and your friends and precious treasure on the behalf of Americans to come home and see Americans not love you for it. That's I didn't deal with that, and so just what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, coming home, it's odd when I actually touched base at El Toro Marine Air Base. Our I had 10 days that I was being released from the Marine Corps. So 10 days from landing in Vietnam to being released into civilian society. They gave us classes to, they said, readjustment to civilian society. And all it was BS sessions. We just sat there, smoked, talked, like we did. I just said, you can't be animals out there, basically. While I was waiting to one of my friends who I'd gone through boot camp with, he had lost his leg in Vietnam, and he lived not too far away from El Toro Marine Air Base. And he wanted me to come to his house over a day or two. And I did. And we had just had a drink at a bar or something, and we left the bar and we're walking, and I don't know, I accidentally hit or stepped on the side of an aluminum Coke can, and it kind of flipped. I instantly threw myself flat down on the sidewalk. And my friend's name is Rick Droz. And he started laughing, and he says, get up, you shell-shocked mother effer. And I get up, but it's like I was shaking. It was, I thought it still was affecting me like that. And it's like I got amnesia for like months, several months, long months. I couldn't remember a lot of details. And the people, I took one class, I knew I had to do something, so I took a political science class, which was probably a big mistake, but it was offered for a community college at night. And I said something, and they were calling me like a baby killer.
Sure.
I wanted to kill them on the spot. I literally wanted to kill them. And So it's like I withdrew even more, and I didn't let people know anything about me being a Marine, Vietnam, any of that kind of stuff. But slowly things started coming back to me, and so I started writing notes, and I had pages and pages and pages of notes, and that's what I used to write my book. Agent Orange, yes, I was exposed to Agent Orange. I remember being on a patrol and a little crop duster plane coming, and they're eating chow or sea rations, and I remember feeling the mist from Agent Orange. And I asked, we asked, what's going on? And they said it was a chemical defoliant to take away, vegetation from hiding places from the enemy. So we thought, oh, okay, great. We're all for that kind of stuff. Well, I am in stage 4 stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. And my oncologist, in his opinion, I am on the short side of 12 months life expectancy. I've done the radiation. He wants me on not chemo, but the abiraterone, Lupron injections, prednisone, all these kinds of stuff. They made me sick. I was on them for about 3 or 4 months, and I quit. I've gone to a more holistic approach. And I saw him just a couple of weeks ago, and that's when he said I'm on the short side of 12 months. But he's basing that on my PSA was rising. It's spread to my ribs and my spinal column now. And he said that my PSA would be, he felt in the 60s, no lower than 40, but he felt well into the 60s. And my holistic approach, I've now been on it for about 6 months. My PSA came back at 12. And it's a huge drop from his predictions. So I'm hoping, that this holistic approach is working to some degree. Even if it isn't, he said that even if the holistic approach, I might have 2 years max. But even if I go with the traditional cancer treatment with the injections and abiraterone, all that other crap, he said 2 years max. Well, one gives you all these terrible side effects. You feel like crap, which is the traditional route. So why would I do that? At least now I still feel like if I want, I can go for a walk. I can mow the lawn. I still try to work out some to stay in some sort of shape. So I feel halfway decent, even though I'm exhausted all the time. But yeah, that's where I am right now.
What's a holistic approach look like?
Pardon me?
You said you're taking more of a holistic approach. What does that look like? What is your approach?
Well, I take ivermectin and fenbendazole. Those are the only 2 drugs that I take. But I take a variety of natural herbs and vitamins, milk thistle, lactoferrin, olive leaf extract, soursop tea, I take 10,000 grams of liquid flaxseed oil mixed with organic cottage cheese. It's a whole list. I take probably around 35 to 40 health supplements in addition to the ivermectin and fenbendazole.
Gotcha.
And this is a shock to my oncologist that my PSA was 12 when he thought it was going to be 60, in the 60s.
Yeah.
So
that's
something
amazing.
There.
Yeah. Who brought this mixture to you?
2 people. One, Dr. William Mekas out of Canada, and he's a big proponent of that. And then I have Catherine Dugan. She's a veteran, 20-something years in the Army. And she had throat cancer and breast cancer, and she did this similar protocol along the same line as mine, because she has tweaked mine to be more like hers. And she's cancer free.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What? How do you deal with? What was your? When you found out that you had cancer, what was your emotions, or what was your general thought process?
Well, okay, let me just give a little bit of backstory here.
Okay.
Coming home, I did the traditional getting the new car, getting married, all that kind of stuff. Got a divorce after 21 years of marriage. My wife left. I got custody of both my daughters. Had a very difficult time. Ended up on the streets a little bit. But I did, coming home, I went ahead and went to college. I have a bachelor's in science. And then I started drawing more toward my faith, especially from that first home I was in, from Mrs. Whitaker, where she would read the Bible to us every day. And I ended up my wife and I started a business. I remarried coming out to North Carolina. We've been married 28 years. And shortly after marrying my wife, she was an accountant for a telephone company. And we started a business, and it was highly successful. And we became financially secure through this business, and it enabled me to leave that business. And I was always searching for a reason why things happen. Why did so many of my friends die and I didn't die? And I struggled with all those kinds of issues, and about my emotions, the way I know how I'm supposed to feel, but I can't always feel that way. And I want that. I want to be able to feel those things. I had a greater high when I was told I was leaving Vietnam, told to go into Da Nang to catch a flight out of there. Well, finally, the Marines, there were 170 or so of us on the civilian jet. We get on the jet. The plane starts taxiing down the runway, and we're building up anticipation. Nobody's saying a word. The engines start revving up. Finally, it's rolling. The wheels lift up. You never heard such a roar in your life. I never thought I could roar as loud as I did. That's the greatest high I've ever experienced. And here's the thing about that, why I say this, is that I never felt that high at the birth of my 3 daughters. Why? It should be. I wish that I had that same high with the birth of my 3 daughters. I wish I had the same high at the marriage to my wife. I know I'm supposed to have those, and I think, what the heck is wrong? But anyway, I turned my life more over to Christ, and I ended up going to seminary, and I got a master's degree in counseling, and I've counseled men struggling with addictions for years, and I still do some of that. I do some marital counseling now as well. But hearing that I had the cancer, it was like nothing. It's like nothing. My highs and lows and death were in Vietnam. And I think I should have been dead a long time ago. I'm in bonus time. So my wife got teary-eyed. I don't know how to explain it, Ryan. It's just, I'm okay. I'm
Yeah,
at peace with it.
that's what my next question. Are you ready for it?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
yeah.
I think, is that selfish? Because I have an 18-year-old daughter. My two oldest daughters are in their 40s. My wife and I decided to have a child together.
Mm,
And so she's in her first year at college at High Point University. And I think leaving them behind, do I want to do that? No, I don't want to leave them behind.
sure.
But do I look forward to the next world to come? I absolutely do.
Yeah. What do you think waits for you?
Pardon me?
What do you think is what do you think is after this?
It's eternity with Christ. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
I believe there's only two choices.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I've been called a lot of names for this, but I believe there's Christ's way or no way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I think one comforting thing, at least in the times right now, is there seems to be a almost an international revival going on across the globe.
Yes.
And, maybe some due to Charlie Kirk, but some due to something else. There's something
Mhm.
else. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's beautiful. I can't sit here and say that I'm ready. A lot of the same reasons that you listed. My kids are young and I don't want to leave them. I don't want to
I understand.
abandon that. Yeah, but I do have the issue, or maybe it's not an issue. I do have the honor of feeling the same way you feel about your highs and lows. I think I still have highs and lows, but um, Ernest Hemingway, I say this a lot, so it might be redundant to my followers, but he said there's no killing like, or no hunting like the hunting of men, and those who have hunted armed men long enough and liked it never much cared for anything thereafter. And it's not that you don't care for anything, it's that you don't connect all the way to it the same way. And I
Yes.
think that that maybe doesn't hit all warriors, but I think that it hits that 10% that bring people home and that 1% that are owning the battlefield. I think it hits those ones. Um, at least
I
in my
think you're right.
experience, it does. So, or it did. What have what have we not covered that you want to? I know that I skipped a large portion right there after getting out um, until bringing it up to current day. But if there's anything that you want to go more in depth or spend more time on, I want to do that before we shut down.
I think we've probably covered more than I have in a long, long time. The only thing that I've had issue with and is when people say thank you for your service.
How so?
Uh, I have a difficult time with that. I'm uncomfortable with that
Hmm.
because it's like I think thank me for my service. My job was to kill people.
Yeah.
How do you thank me? How do I take a thank you for bearing my emotions? How do I take a thank you for looking forward
Hmm.
to abusing another human being, which I did?
Hmm.
Um, how do how do you even begin to explain the ugliness that you have found in yourself
Hmm.
in a situation that you never ever thought you would sink
Hmm.
to that level? And you thank me for my service. I never respond negatively to these people. It's just, I think I don't want your thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that. I just kind of say, oh, thank you. And then I just move on
Yeah. Can I?
because they're never going to understand.
No, no. Can I? Can I just say something about that? And
Yes.
it's not meant to change your mind. I don't. You have far more wisdom on life than I do. But one way that I respond to that seems to help me is uh, the amount of courage and, well, let's just call it courage. The amount of courage it takes a random person to go up to a person that they do not know and thank them for something that they know nothing about is overlooked by us, by our community sometimes. And the only thing that I would say that I tell other guys that I hear that same response is I say that they are thanking you not for the worst parts of what you did. They are thanking you for filling a seam or a gap in the defensive or American lines that they and other people around them did not have the intestinal fortitude, guts, and courage to fill. It's their way of just saying thank you. And sometimes what I do, because sometimes I feel the same way about some of the things that I did, what I sometimes do is I just take that thank you because there are definitely friends of mine that I know deserve that thank you, that aren't with us anymore, that can't receive that thank you, that gave their entire rest of their adult life for that cause of thank you. And if I can't muster up the strength to just get in the right place to thank them for that uh, notion of kindness, then I can easily thank them for these other guys. It's easy for me to thank them for those guys. And if I come at it from that angle, because here's the antithesis. The antithesis is guys in my generation that get angry at the citizen population, not only for saying thank you, but not understanding the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. We would pick something so small as that they just don't understand. They're just trying to say thank you and show some sort of appreciation for something that they don't have in them. And they're thankful that somebody had that in them. Somebody had that and stood that line for them. And so, again, I say the same thing. Like, they don't know the difference between those two things. They're not thinking that. But who are they supposed to tell that to? Everybody on Memorial Day that should be told to is dead. They're not here anymore. So we, as ambassadors of our service, should receive that thank you. And even like you said, if I have to put a face on and tell you, hey, I appreciate that on behalf of my friends, or on behalf of, let me tell you a story about somebody on my wrist that deserves that thank you. That's the approach I try to take to it when I can't put it together in my head, when I can't get to that place of feeling to be right about it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not going to say it always works, but it's where I like to try to be for those people and for the service that I'm representing, maybe.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a perspective I've not even thought about.
Absolutely.
Uh,
If it
yeah,
helps, cool. If it doesn't help, hey, we tried. Cool. Hey, listen, I really appreciate this. I appreciate on a short notice and not knowing me very much, trusting me enough to kind of bring this. I think it will help people. I don't have too many Vietnam guys that are willing to talk about things, and I mean to release this stuff to show them it's okay to talk about these things, man. You were asked to do things that most people weren't asked to do. You did those things. It's not always easy. It's not easy. A lot of it was ugly. But there are a vast group of patriotic Americans that absolutely not only thank you for your service, not even knowing what your service is, but that because of the sacrifices of your generation, my generation came up with a VA system, and my generation didn't get spit on when I came home. And that is due to and by way of your generation receiving that brunt so that we could realize that's not the way and make it better. And so I appreciate everything that you've said here today and your transparency, and just thank you. That's good for me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, that's what we got for Choices Not Chances. Listen, if this thing made you moved you inside, anything that resonated with you, I ask that you just don't be selfish with the information. Share this out there. You got an uncle, a grandfather, cousin, somebody that has been through the ringer, and you think some of this talk can help in some way. Please share it out. And if it's just for entertainment, you got some of the old heads at the VFW, share it out to your buddies and reminisce in old times. So again, this is Choices Not Chances, guys, signing off until next time.